Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight I want to welcome back to the show Mark Wages, aka Blue Koolaid. He closely monitors satellite data, various instruments for anomalies, objects, and possible threats to our planet. Mark, how you doing tonight?
Okay, Chris, how about yourself, buddy?
Hey, I'm great, and thanks for joining us again. This is
No
your
problem.
fourth time here, I think?
Yeah, I think it's the third or fourth time. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
it's cool.
You know, I've been researching anomalies and mainly, a lot of the Earth changes that we've been seeing on our planet for years now. And every year, things seem to get more intense, more earthquakes, volcanoes, extreme weather, and it's gradually increasing. And I know that it is because I've been watching this for years and I can see it. The question is, what's the cause? There's, a few theories that I consider. Could we be headed towards the galactic center and being hit with more cosmic energy? Could it be the grand solar minimum? The elites playing God and trying to cause the apocalypse? Or is it Planet X?
Mm-hmm.
Something's definitely happening.
Yeah.
And you monitor this stuff. You monitor these changes as well, but you're focused more on the space side. And, last time you were on, you shared some fascinating findings, and I understand you have some more to share with us tonight.
Yeah. To talk about a little bit about what you just said about where this stuff could be coming from, I believe, just my own personal opinion, it's probably a little bit of all of the above. I really do. I don't think any of us have all the answers, but I think all of us have some of the answers. And, that's just how I go about it. And, it's done me well that way. I don't try to, like I've talked about before, that I try to stay a little bit grounded. I know it's easy for us to go way, way off the chart somewhere crazy. And, and it's easy because it's the stuff that we do look at is kind of sensationalism. I mean, a little bit. It does. It's eye candy, some of it. And, but you have to try to bring it back. And I think that's kind of why I kind of stick to the, more data point stuff, if that makes any sense, other than camera captures and stuff like that, because there's so many things that could be going on with a camera, a photograph, or a cell phone camera, or something like that. Now, I'm not saying that some of those pictures out there aren't valid.
So many lens flares.
Yes. Oh my goodness, dude. And I was a victim to that when I first started getting into this. And I think most of us are.
I was too. Yes. I mean, when I first started, I was researching Planet X, and I saw some pictures that I was convinced was the real deal, and then come to find out it's a lens flare, just some other camera anomaly. But this whole thing is a learning process. The more you go, the more you learn.
Yep. And and like I said, it's just one of those things where you have to. You can get taught by other people, and I've been brought along by quite a few people, Scott and lots of others. And there's a good amount of knowledge there to be gained. But to say that, you also have to do it yourself. You can't just use everything that everybody says as a crutch and just move on. You have to dive into it. And if you look at it yourself with your own eyes, which is kind of how I focus my channel, I try to teach people how to look at the tools for themselves. And that's really how the basis of my channel got started. And I still do that. I'll actually show them what buttons to click, how to get here, how to get there. And, because nothing more is more convincing to somebody or myself than to see it with your own eyes when you got there yourself. I could show you something all day long. You might not see it, but you click on it one time and you see it one time for yourself. It's there. You know what I mean? And you don't forget it that way. So that's just kind of how I've done my stuff, And that's where my focus has always been, really. Now, don't get me wrong. I do try to go outside of what I think is true and look at stuff, because that's how we grow. That's how we learn new stuff. If we just accept the status quo, we never get any further. And and I think that's where mainstream science fails. They get stuck in their dogma. They get stuck in their teachings, and most of the stuff that they do teach is most likely correct, but there are those few things out there that they refuse to even address. And people like yourself and me and many others that do this are sticking our necks out there and doing it. You know, we're doing it out there, and we put our, I don't know, ourselves out there to be scrutinized very, very heavily. And you know, when I started my channel, I didn't expect any of that. It was a hard thing for me to get used to. My skin had to get way thicker. Let me tell you. There was multiple times where I considered shutting my channel down, but you know, you keep moving. You know, you just got to, if you just keep moving on. And I have to say this: the comment sections in my videos, I get so much more positivity than I do negativity. So that's what I try to, you know, tell people too, that there's more good out there than there is bad, no matter what people tell you. That is 100% the truth. You know, people don't, for the most part, don't want you to fail. You know, they want you to do good for yourself. They want you to be able to bring them some good knowledge or some new stuff that they've never heard of before. And, you know, they just want a good, honest report on what you're doing, you know, and that's what I try to do. So, you know, that's kind of where I'm at. But, you know, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now. We were talking about, you know, cameras. You know, the tools that we look at, even on the satellites, there's cameras on there too. And there's anomalies that happen with those. And we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at the stuff that we do. There's a very common, now that one you got right behind you in your picture, that is not a camera anomaly, okay? That's something that was some sort of energy particle or whatever the heck that is. I don't know what that is, you know what I'm saying? Or if it was a ship or whatever that could be. That is not a camera anomaly, what you're looking at there. Now, when you see something like, we've seen these, especially on the LASCO, you're muted, Chris. Right there.
You are talking about this guy right here, right?
Yeah. I'm talking about right there. Sorry, I was using my cursor. Nobody could even see me. But when you see the uniform captures, they look like half moons, and they're like equally spaced out, and this and that. Dude, I'm telling you, man, 99% of those are camera flaws. You know, when you see something that doesn't look, that's that uniform, it's got to be something intelligent. Nature doesn't do that.
Right.
You know, that's something that was, you know, some sort of equipment flaw. And we see these big scatterings of stuff on there, and then a lot of times they are charged particles. That's how the camera interprets it. It's not an actual capture, and that's what people don't understand. It's actually data being put into that. And it's, you know what I'm saying? So it's that's how the camera interprets that data. Is what I'm saying, and that's what you see in the capture. So, you know, we've all seen that black occulter, right? That's in a lot of those pictures, and we see that little sparkling thing, and it looks like a disco ball, right? What that is it's energy bouncing around the thermocouple, or not thermocouple, but the thermal regulator, I think is what they call it on the camera, and it's the energy bouncing back and forth in there. And these cameras, if you've seen a cross section of them, they look like tubes. So if you cut one of those in half, what do you see? You see those half moon circles equally spaced because there's baffles inside these cameras. It looks just like the insides of these cameras is what I'm saying. And there's more than just one occulter on these cameras. There's one on the outside, and there's internal occulters also. So there's a lot of stuff in there for light to be bouncing around in. And, you know, and I think we all have to keep that in mind when we're talking about this stuff. But I also have to say, we see stuff on here that shouldn't be. Okay. And that's where we dig into it. You know, when we do see those things, you know, I look at this stuff multiple times a day, you know, just throughout the day. Most of the time it's just casual. You know, I'm just kind of scrolling through it. And if I catch something with my eye, I'll stop and I'll go back and look at it, you know, and I'll dig into it. And I've had to come back on a few of my videos and say, hey, I was wrong on that, guys. This is what it was. There was a very, very large learning curve for me at the beginning. Because like most of us, like you said, lens flares, that's what gets a lot of people. But I do have to say this, a lens flare kind of drags a lot of people into our community. You know, so there's kind of like, there's one of those things where you have to, is it all bad because I've seen a lens flare, or is it, because frankly, I wouldn't be sitting here if I hadn't seen a lens flare and thought it was something.
Right, yeah, that is true.
You see what I'm saying there, man? I mean, and I know that we can't sit up here and say, hey, yeah, let's do lens flares. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is when you get people in here that have seen lens flares, we have to correct them and correct them pretty quickly, because if you don't, you're not doing them any favors. And I think that that's important to do.
Yeah, there's too many people in this community that know something's fake, and they'll still share it just to, to get likes or for notoriety, whatever the purpose.
Right. And and that is the exact reason and the main reason I do not monetize my channel. I don't want myself to fall into that category that I'm making a video just to get views so I can get more monetization. Now, I'm not saying anything that people shouldn't monetize, because I'm 100% am in support of people of monetizing. Okay, I really do. There's a couple reasons there. You get put in a different search bracket. Okay, when you monetize, they promote your video a little bit more, and plus, people do this for their job. Okay, you got to live. You know what I mean? So people have to at some level, they have to be able to do that. But like you said, if you're doing stuff just to get views and you're intentionally putting out fraudulent material that ain't right, and you just need to quit doing it. I mean, there's so much stuff out there you could show that's true. Why not just do that instead of just trying to, just trying to do that? But I don't think any of that's ever going to go away. It's just always going to be there, and it's going to be people like me and you and multiple others that's going to have to just keep doing what we do. And
definitely.
Hopefully, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking of, let's take a look at what's been going on in space.
Okay. Let me share my screen here, and we'll show you a couple things. Okay. All right. You got me there?
Yes, got you.
Okay. Let me get up here to the top here real quick before I start. Well, right now we're having a geomagnetic storm. If anybody hasn't been, isn't aware of that, I guess I could kind of give a little overview of what that actually is for people that don't know. I actually have I'll just use this picture right here. This will work good. This is a picture of our sun. It's from our view. This is from the SDO. The SDO satellite has a bunch of different cameras and tools on it, and all it does is look at the sun. It's right out in front of us. It stays in geosynchronistic orbit with us. What that means is it stays on the same position relative to the Earth. Okay, so it doesn't never get around to the backside of the Earth. It's not orbiting the Earth. Okay, it's orbiting the sun with us. But it does like a figure 8 pattern. If anybody has ever seen that, they can go look at it. You can get to the SDO site, find all the information on that you need. I mean, because it's there. You just got to look. And what that does is, you'll see some of the captures that some channels will show, and they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, what's eclipsing our sun?" Well, what that is that's a figure 8 pattern that satellite's doing, and it's kind of coming in and going out, coming in, because it looks like if you catch it right at the right point, it will look like a double eclipse, like something stops and goes back the other direction. And that's not really what's happening. It's just perspective from the satellite. That's as simple as it gets. It's really all that it is. But a geomagnetic storm is caused most of the time by solar wind. Okay. And obviously the word solar means it came from the sun. If it comes from somewhere else, you can't call it solar wind. Okay. You got to call it something different. Which we do have energy coming from other places like cosmic rays, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But this right here is a picture of our sun, and this is a current picture. I just took this just a few minutes ago. Okay, this is in the 193 angstrom, which is, you guys want to think of it in ways of lenses. Like if you go outside with 4 or 5 different pairs of sunglasses, and you just keep flipping them off, and you see certain, like if you look at a tree, you'll see it clear with like a yellow lens. You put a green lens on, and it's not as clear. Okay, that's what these tools are kind of purposed to do. They look at stuff in different angstroms so we can see stuff that you can't see in the same light spectrum. Because our visible light spectrum is very, very small. There's X-rays, there's all kinds of different, UV rays, all those things. And, we have to really keep that in mind when we're looking at stuff like this. Just because we don't see it on one angstrom and we look at it on another, if we see it on the other angstrom, it's there. Okay, it's just what it is. That's what it is. What if you can see it at all on any of the angstroms, it's there. It's just you can't see it with our visible eye unless you have help from this tool, is what I'm saying. But anyway, what you're seeing here is this is the position of the Earth. Okay, we're just south of the equator of the sun as we're orbiting the Earth. Okay, so I guess let me do this real quick. Okay, I'll do this right here. What did I do there? Let's just go back. Sorry about that. Okay, let's just do that. I think I have a draw tool here somewhere. Anyway, I guess, let's see here. There we go. Okay, this right here is a coronal hole. Okay, what that is a coronal hole basically is exactly what it says. It's a hole in the sun's corona. What's the sun's corona? It's its atmosphere, basically. Okay, so basically the surface of the sun is exposed right there, right in here. These black holes, you see these? Okay, now all this stuff right here, what happens is when those open up, it sends charged, yeah, okay, leave that without saving. It sends charged particles our way, okay, or whatever way, wherever it's opened up at, it sends charged particles that direction. It's what we call the solar wind stream. Okay, so when these holes come right across where the Earth is facing the sun, we get that solar wind. Okay, and what happens is it affects our magnetosphere, and some of that energy does get through. Okay, that's just, we have constant wind from the sun anyway. It usually stays between, anyway, a normal would be 300 to 500 kilometers per second. Okay, and there are converters out there. You can convert it to miles per hour if you want to. That's how we actually track it back and find out, if it's actually from the sun when we get these hits on our magnetosphere. Because if you get the speed of it, you can calculate it because the sun's 93 million miles away. So if you get the miles per hour, you can backtrack it and go look at this stuff and see if it actually came from the sun. And that's how I do it anyway. But that's how everybody really has to do it. Because when these holes open up, we cannot tell you exactly how fast the wind stream is going to be. Nobody can until it hits our detectors, which are on these satellites. Okay, so we don't really get a heads up until we actually see it hitting our magnetosphere, if that makes any sense. But when we're looking at this, we see these coronal holes and they rotate right through the Earth. Okay, right through the Earth strike zone is what they call that. So when we get that, we get these big coronal, we get these geomagnetic storms, basically, is what it does. Okay, and I'll show you what that is. Well, this is a perfect representation of the two different angstroms. Okay, the one on the right is 211. The one on the left is 193. Okay, that's the difference of when you switch lenses. Basically, is how I'm going to word it anyway. You see how much on the purple imaging, how much more you're seeing. The holes are bigger. Okay, so that is true. That's actually that way. Now, look on the left. That's typically the angstrom they use when they're trying to show you an official coronal hole. They base it off the 193, which is why I show the 193 instead of the purple. But we can see these holes over here starting to open up quicker on the 211, so we can get a little bit more of a warning. So, but anyway, this is that coronal hole that's giving us the geomagnetic storm right now. Okay, this rotated right through us. Now, if you look up here at the top, there's a northern and a southern coronal hole that are always there. Those don't go away. They get smaller and bigger, but they don't go away. This coronal hole was here about 3.5 days ago. So it took that wind about 3.5 days to get here. Okay, and that's pretty typical. Some of that wind got upwards of, well, I actually computed it, about 3 million miles per hour. Okay, that's fast. I mean, that's quick. Sorry about that. Mouth was getting dry.
Are those northern and southern coronal holes, those have always been there?
That's a good question, Chris. Every picture I've seen, they've been in, every capture I've seen. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure if they could have been able to tell until these satellites got up here. I'm not sure if they were able to do that from ground-based stuff or not. I'd have to research that. That's a good question, actually. that'd be some good knowledge to have. But as
I remember, I don't know what researcher it was saying that at one point those didn't exist constantly. And I don't know, I've never verified that. I was just wondering if you have.
It would make sense that they weren't always there, because the sun does go through cycles, and that's exactly what we're experiencing now. We're going into the solar minimum. We're actually in it. We're at the very beginning stages of it. It's going to get a lot more or less active. Okay. And as we go into the sun cycle, the next sun cycle, a sun cycle, guys, is 11 years. And they base that basically off of the sun will, how we've been talking about a magnetic pole flip here on the earth. A sun cycle is when it flips poles. It flips poles every 11 years. So that's how they kind of go off of that. I'm not sure if it's an exact 11 years, but that's the rough time frame. And I think they start, the new cycle, they base that off of when they start seeing sunspots again. Because right now, if you're looking at this, they call this a blank disk. What that means is there's no sunspots at all there. That's if you go back even a year, okay, and you look at this, there'll be sunspots right there. You go back 5 years, you'd have to turn the brightness down on your screen. I mean, it's just that is the biggest difference. And I do have some captures of that. I have to find them, but I think I've shown them here on your channel before. But I did some comparisons between like 2000, what year was it? 2010 or something to now, and I put the same camera, the same angstrom, and they look totally different. And the one that was now, current was very, very dim. It just was not bright at all. And that brings me to the next point I would like to make is, we get these geomagnetic storms, right? But we see stuff hit us that does not come from the sun. Okay, we get these anomalies on the magnetopause models, and I'll scroll down here so you guys can look at one of them while we're talking about this. Okay, actually, we'll just look at this one. But when you can't track it back to the sun, okay, like I just said, you get these anomalies and you get the wind speed and you go back to the sun and there were no coronal holes, then you got to ask where it came from. Because these satellites and these tools that we're looking at, they 100% automatically assume that it's coming from the sun. They think it's solar wind. That's what these tools are designed to say, designed to think like. They don't know the source of the energy that they're getting. All they can tell you is that they're getting charged particles at a certain density and a certain speed. That's what they're telling you. Okay, so we get back to the solar minimum. What that does is, just like we have a magnetic shield, our magnetopause, okay, that protects us from stuff from the sun. Well, the sun has one too, and it stretches out all the way to the end of our solar system. Okay, I'm not sure exactly where it stops, but I know it goes out really, really far. And what it does is it protects us from cosmic rays. Okay, so it makes sense that if we're in a solar minimum and getting into a weaker sun, that more cosmic rays are going to come through. Okay, and I'm not the only one that talks about this, and there's a lot of other people out there. Me and Scott's talked about this at length. This is something we've been researching for a very long time, and there's other channels out there that do a good job of it too. They show the spikes and stuff on our tools, and I've done that before. So when you see a spike on these things and you can't take it back to the sun, it had to come from somewhere. So you start looking at other options. And so where do we look? Well, the first thing like I said, we look at cosmic rays is probably the second thing we look for. But after that, then you start looking at the Planet X conversation. Okay. And Scott had come up with a 28-day orbital theory that he came with, and we've had so much observational evidence for that now that in my mind it's pretty much what it is. It's pretty much fact in my mind. Okay. And we have and I know a lot of people are going to ask, how can an object orbit the sun in such a fast way? So with a couple of little Google searches, you can figure out that really isn't as fast as what we see in the universe. they track objects much bigger than what we're talking about, going around stars much faster. So that it is possible, is what I'm trying to say. So just to think that it's only only possible not here would be, you know, it would be kind of lapse for us just to kind of just brush that off. And not to mention that, you know, all of us in this community can pretty much agree that the Planet X object itself is on a highly elliptical orbit. Okay, no matter what theory you're talking about, almost everybody says that it's in a highly elliptical orbit. So, you know, that is what it is. But what I'm saying there is, why I brought that up is because sometimes, and I've talked about this a lot, that it has an electromagnetic field just like we do. So when it's closer to the sun and it gets in specific positions, you know, in my mind, it can interact with that electromagnetic field with the sun. Those two would have a reaction, and it would, you know, we could possibly see some energy come from that. And what's kind of crazy about what I'm talking about here, well, I might be able to scroll down and show you. Let me see. I thought I had one right here real close. I'll just keep scrolling down as I talk. Make somebody dizzy. I'm sorry. But yeah, you know, here's one. Okay. I'll just show you this one. This is a thumbnail I used in one of my videos. Okay. When we talk about stuff like this, you know, we're now able basically to say, hey, we need to look for this on this day. And it shows up. Okay. Within a couple days, it does. It just shows up. It's there almost every time. I went back and I tracked this for almost over a year. And I seen reactions on the same exact spot on the sun. And a lot of times what happens is the sun will react with this thing and it'll light it up on these coronagraphs. And, you know, and I get that people are going to, you know, look at this and think, oh no, you know, that's just kind of crazy and this and that. Well, just dive into it a little bit. Just keep a little bit of an open mind before you just automatically think that this is just can't happen. Because believe me, this conversation that I'm talking about here on this 28-day cycle was being had for 6 months plus before it even got brought out. Because, you know, there was a lot of stuff that we really had to at least try to research out and vet as much as we could. Can we be wrong? Of course. I'm not saying we can't be wrong. But when I have observational stuff like this that goes back and I'm able to tell you exactly where this is going to be on this day, and it ain't just me, okay? I'm not saying me at all. I hate to use that word me because it's not about me. It's just what we see. You know what I'm saying?
Now, what are the theories on exactly what this object is? Is it a brown dwarf? Is it just some sort of rogue planetary body?
Well, I think, you know, like I said, I think what we're talking about here with this one would be more of a stellar core type of an object. Right. And there could be, and there most certainly is other objects with it. Okay. I think a lot of us that do this research have kind of come to the conclusion that it's not just one object. It's pretty much a system that's invading our solar system pretty much. And it's probably been here for quite some time. And evidence of that would be, you know, if you just work your way from the outside in and you look at the changes of the other planets, it's real simple to figure out that something happens. Something happened. Okay. And it was like in sequential, you know, order. It started from outside and worked its way in. So it ain't like it went from Uranus to Mercury. Okay. It went from Pluto to Neptune. It followed the planets in, is what I'm saying. So something was moving there. Whether it is what I'm saying it is, or whether it's not, something happened. I can tell you that something's going on there. And again, you know, this is just one object. I'm not talking about, you know, because we do see stuff in other places, and that's a fact. We would be kind of foolish to say, hey, this is the only object out there, and this is the only truth that could ever be. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that this is a theory that has now had a lot of observational evidence for it. And it's hard for me not to just to kind of accept it for now. You know what I'm saying? And again, I encourage everybody to look at it for themselves and just keep an open mind on it just a little bit, you know. I think it's important that we do that. Now, see, when we see stuff like that without a filter, I didn't do any manipulation to that at all. That is exactly what it looked like on the camera.
That's pretty compelling there.
Yeah, I mean, and again, and it followed right along, because if you look at these dates, that's 9/11/2019. That's 8/13/2019. What is that? 28 days. Exact same spot. I mean, so,
Right.
you know, and again, it's also interesting because we got this on 8/13. Well, we get these captures over here on the top. Those typically, we see those on the seeds site. Okay. The 2 to 3 day window, we should have been seeing this in this spot again. Seeds had no data. So, you know, then you question, okay, well, what are they doing there? Are they shutting it off now, or what's going on? You know, because the data is simply just not there. Typically, when that tool goes down, when it comes back up, it will backtrack and show you all the old data that it missed. You can go back and look at those days. This time is different. That data is not there. They're not letting us see any of it. Now, am I trying to say that there can't be technical issues? Absolutely not, because there can be. Okay. I just find it hard to think that it's a coincidence when we see it happening on those days multiple times. Okay. I do think that whatever this is, they do at some level. We see what they want us to see, and that's a fact. And it's getting harder and harder to catch this stuff. You know what I mean? Because they are definitely trying to censor some of this stuff, and I truly believe that we're not going to see anything they don't want us to see.
Yeah, I have a couple of other friends that monitor satellite data like yourself, and they're telling me the same thing. It's being more censored and harder to get access to this information.
Yeah, it most certainly is, man. It is definitely getting harder, and that's why it's going to take more of us to catch the stuff. Now, I do think that they do make mistakes. I do think that sometimes it gets out there. What I suggest people to do, like if they're going to look at these tools, I always keep my recorder on my home screen, wherever it's at. And if I go somewhere and I look at something and I think it's something that needs to be, you know, we need to dig into it some more, I'll record it immediately, because there's been multiple times I didn't do that, and I go back and the data's gone. So, you know, sometimes stuff gets out that shouldn't. And plus, you got to keep in mind, people that work for these agencies, not all of them are nefarious. Okay. There's good people there too. And I think sometimes they get put out on purpose. So we do have, you know, some of that. And again, there's so many things that go into this, Chris, you know, soft disclosure, you know, just all of that kind of thing. That subject comes up all the time, because I know that I really truly believe that's what's going on. You know, because if you just look around, I mean, UFO stuff, I mean, it's all over the place right now. Okay. Why? Well, you know, then the Navy comes out with its thing, right? You know, saying about the footage was real, and it wasn't supposed to even get released, and it did. So, you know, is that all a lie, or is it just something that they're trying to desensitize us to? That something's, you know, we're about ready to have to get the lid blowed off of that.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. They're preparing us for something. I definitely don't trust any of the sources that this is coming from, but you know that they're actually disclosing some of this stuff, which is kind of a shocker. But there's got to be some agenda behind it that I probably, you know, I wouldn't trust.
And, you know, and I agree with that. And that's what makes it so hard to do what we do, Chris, is because we got to try to sift through that stuff. And then, you know, and like I said before, this is hard for anybody to believe anyway. It just is. It takes a lot for people to grab a hold of this and be able to go with it and think any of it's true. You know what I mean? Even for me at first, you know, we're just so, I don't want to call it
myself with what I do. I question all this stuff all the time. You know, I'm still not sold on the Planet X thing. I question that. There's a lot of evidence for it, but there's a lot of evidence for a lot of other things. But that's why I have guests like yourself on here to show us the evidence, so we can explore all the possibilities and try and figure out what is really happening.
That's a great thing, man. I really do. I think that's awesome, because I do think that, like I said before, that all of us, none of us have all the answers, but all of us have some of the answers. And I think that it takes all of that to come together for us to actually get to the truth. And there's a lot of people now that have been around for a very long time doing this research now. Okay. You can go into anybody that you want to talk about, and obviously, I work closely with Scott over at Planet X News, and he's been doing this for like 20 years, and he shared some stuff with me that, pictures and captures that aren't even out there. We just haven't put them out there yet. And that's, that's part of the benefit of doing this research, kind of, you kind of get some of that inside stuff that it really isn't out there yet, that we still have to research out more and vet, because there's certain, like I said, when I see something, I don't just come straight up and do a video on it. That's something I don't do, especially on the sites that I go to. The longer you wait, they actually add data to those tools. So you get to see more captures. Okay. Because the real-time stuff that you see, it's missing some data points. So if you wait just a day or two, you get more. Now there's times that I come out and say, hey, check this out. Like a geomagnetic storm, can't really hide that. You know what I mean? It's there. It's either there or it's not. And that's my point, but yeah, there's so much stuff that we need to just dig into that, and it takes an open mind to get any of this. If you don't have an open mind, you might as well just go look at somebody else or watch something else, because it's just simply you're not going to get it. You're not open, if you're not open to it at all. And obviously, I get a lot of comments, emails and stuff just smacking me in the face, and all of us experience that do this. And I had to grow a lot thicker skin. And it's something that the conclusion that I've come to is that they're not necessarily attacking me. They just don't understand it yet. And they think that, saying something like that to me or doing something like that is validating the way that they feel. But
yeah, 100%.
I just ignore it. That's how I deal with it. My comment section, if you go look at my comment section, every comment is there unless it's attacking another creator or attacking another sub, or if it's vulgar. Right. You can mash me around all day long in the comment section. Come on over, I'll read it. You know what I mean? Right. I don't care, and there's sometimes if you ask me a question or give me a pushback on what I'm trying to show in a respectful way, I'll dig into it. I'll be like, well, maybe I was wrong. I'll go look at that. But you come at me like that, I'm not going to listen to a word you're saying. I'm just going to leave it there for everybody to read and show how ignorant you are. That's pretty much how I leave it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But it's hard to do sometimes, because you definitely want to snap back. But what this is, guys, and we talked about this a minute ago, Chris. I'm sorry, I got off on a little rant there.
No, you're good.
I just think that needs talked about a lot more than what it gets talked about, because that's something that we deal with, that most people don't see, because we just don't bring it up. You know what I mean? Because it has no place in the research at all.
Yeah, you're right. I'm the same way. I ignore most of the trolls. I don't, I leave my comments there. I don't clap back at them. But most of the comments, like you said, they're mostly positive. It's mostly good people who want to see you succeed.
Yep. And that's true. That's something that also I figured out. And, we were talking before we came on. I get a lot more. I get 95% good comments. And I'm telling you right now, guys, like I said, I don't monetize. So that's what drives me, to be honest. When I get that good comment, it does pep me up, and it does give a little bit validity and drive behind what I try to do. It gives me a reason to keep going with my channel, basically, is what I'm saying. If I can just reach one or two people on this and at least give them something to think about, then as far as I'm concerned, I succeeded. Even if what I'm showing them doesn't turn out to be true, at least I pointed them into the direction that we need to look at something different. And that's just how I look at things. But back to the graphs. Sorry about the rant again. This right here is a CME tracker, guys. What this does is, and I'll tell you what, I'll get the Where's my draw tool at? I don't need that one. Okay. This yellow, shoot, that's a wrong color, man. Can you guys see that? Can you see that, Chris?
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back into that then. Let's see here. Draw. Okay. Anyway, that yellow circle, can you guys see my cursor? That's Earth.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Obviously, that's the sun. Now, there's a key on this. This is a screenshot. Sorry, I don't have the actual graph up here. But, you know, the circle ones, the ones that are circles, are planets. Okay, I think this one out here is Mars. The green one would be Venus, and the orange one there and the closest to the sun, obviously, would be Mercury. And we're the yellow. Now, the square ones are satellites. Okay, that's what those are. I think this green one's the Parker SP satellite. Okay, that was in recent news a couple months back. The red one over here we use a lot. That's Stereo A. Okay, when you guys see a picture from Stereo A, that's where it's coming from. It always looks at the sun. Okay, so it basically gives us a side view of the sun, and sometimes we can catch stuff off the back of the sun too. And Stereo B is the blue one up here. We don't get data from that anymore. There's a whole story behind that I won't go into. But these two, Stereo A and B, were actually put there to give us some sort of early warning detection of CMEs. That's what they were for. That way we can monitor basically the whole sun, because if you look at these satellites, they can see the backside. So, and what we think happened over here on Stereo B, where we're catching so much stuff that they just shut it off. They tried to say it was communication and technical error.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
But what puzzles me about that is the fact that they still know where this satellite's at, because they track it and it's on the graphs. So why would they do that if it's not working?
Yeah.
Makes no sense. But anyway, you see my arrow here, okay? What that is, guys, that's an anomaly that nobody can explain. Okay, that's a sheath line basically. There's two more of them that come off the sun here that are normally there. I'm not sure what they actually connect to, but this right here should not be here, is what I'm trying to say. That is a magnetic connection to something.
Right.
Okay.
That is odd.
It's extremely odd. Let me see if I can find the one before that. Let's get off of that. I want to show you guys
It's like the invisible planet.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Let's see here. There it is. Okay. This was on 8/28. Okay, now I also have to say this is the CME tracker. It does not update its data unless there's a CME. Okay, so there's going to be weeks sometimes between CMEs. So we don't get to see like a continuous data collection of this. So this is the first time I've seen it. Okay, this is back on 8/28. So it'd be August 28th of this year. This was just last month. I did some videos and stuff on this. But like I said, what that is that's a connection. That's a magnetic connection of some sort. That is not an object. I want to point that out. Okay, that's just a magnetic connection is what that is. But what's interesting is you see where it's at there. Okay, and if you guys go look at the CME tracker, this thing will spiral. Okay, and you can look at it and it moves, obviously. This thing actually moved up and around, and as it was moving up and around, it started getting closer to the sun. So that was on 8/28, and that was on 9/13. So it went from, it went from over here to here in about 2 weeks. Okay. Now, what bothered me about this is an electrical connection that's coming off the back of here. Now, if you can kind of think in three-dimensional ways, that this thing is still spiraling, right? There's the Earth. So the next couple of days after this, that connection was going to pass right through us. Okay. And we did see some, we've seen some anomalies on the magnetosphere. Okay. I'm still researching that out a little bit more. And they were just quick little blips. Okay. They weren't like big, long lasting, events, which is exactly what you would expect if an electrical connection like that kind of interrupted ours to the sun a little bit. You wouldn't think it would last very long, and it doesn't. But yeah. So that happened.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, and like I said, I think pretty much me, and there was the Maverick Star, the channel Maverick Star, he showed this once too. I sent an email off to these guys trying to figure out what this is, and I haven't got a response. I've sent a couple over. So they're not responding to me. I don't know why. Typically you get a response, whether, hey, this is this, this, and this, or, hey, we don't know what this is, leave it alone, type of thing. But typically you don't get ignored, and I got ignored twice on this one, so there's not much I can do about that. You know, there's not really a whole much more we can do with that when we start seeing those kinds of things, and we don't, they don't respond to us. But this right here was really bothersome to me, okay? This is our magnetosphere, okay? Chris, I know you know this model, but I'll give these guys a little explanation if you want me to.
Sure.
Typically, this model, you see this this line here where my cursor is. Can you guys see that cursor, Chris?
Yes.
Okay. That is basically our magnetic shield. That's our bow shock line, okay? That's our defense against the winds coming from the sun, basically. Okay? You see how it's all contorted? It shouldn't look like that. Okay? Now, why was this so kind of crazy? Well, the reason why is because, number one, this tool was down for over a week. Okay? And when it came back up, this is what we seen. So I don't know that they're hiding data here, but I do think they probably manipulated some of it. I don't know. I can't say for sure, obviously. But when a tool goes down for that length of time and you have they give you no reason for it, these things are up here because of our tax dollars, and that's why we have access to them. They're required to give us some sort of an answer there, and they don't. And, you know, we could try to push against that, but we're not going to get nowhere with it. You know? But what I'm seeing here is this little blowout here. You see this right over here? Okay, all that.
Yeah.
That came from the inside out. Okay, we did not get hit in the front at all there. The Earth reacted from the inside out and pushed that direction. We did have some solar wind close by, and within the next, that's what it looked like first. Okay, that's a typical. That's not too bad of an object there or a capture. That's almost normal, except for the red here. That's pretty intense energy. The dotted line there, guys, is where our satellites are. Okay. The Earth, the actual the black part is kind of like the upper part of our atmosphere. That's not the surface of the Earth. Just so people have a little bit of a relation there. But that was, and then that was the next one. Okay, that was extremely odd. I tell you what I can do real quick. Let me do this. Oh goodness. Let's do this. I'm gonna go over there to that site real quick, Chris, if it's all right.
Yeah, of course.
I'll run a movie on it if I can get it to boot up. Sometimes I have issues with it. I got really bad internet connection sometimes in my room here. It may take a minute, but yeah, I mean, when we're doing that stuff, when we're looking at that, and that tool went down. Okay, that's what was bothersome. Okay, and then when it came back up, that's what we seen. So what I will do, let me get this over here, run the movie tool. I'm sorry, I should have had this ready to go.
No, that's no worries.
You know my issue, dude. I told you my issue. Yeah, it was an interesting day. What date was that on? Was that on the 20th? Oh gosh, I should have known that. I should know that.
Now these energies that you're showing, these bursts of energies, do they coincide with any events on Earth, like earthquakes or volcanic activity?
Yes, most certainly. I think what happens, and this is just something that I've been thinking on a lot. Now, I do know that this is something that's getting more and more accepted, that the solar weather that we get does affect earthquake activity and volcanic seismic activity. I guess I should just use it that way.
Oh, definitely.
But what happens is that the energy we get from the sun, the stuff that does make it through, does get absorbed into our crust. Okay, so it adds energy. So it has to be released somewhere once it gets built up to a specific point. Okay, I think I'm gonna let that run as it goes as we talk here. But I think, you know, when we get cosmic rays, those are very, very dangerous. Okay, and what do I mean by that? The FAA will actually issue a warning to pilots and pregnant women that fly over 800 hours a year when we're having these cosmic ray events.
Yeah.
So especially when you get up towards the higher latitudes, which would be towards the North and South Pole, where our magnetic field isn't as strong. The people that fly, the pilots and stuff, they get warned, hey, we're having these cosmic rays, you know, I don't know what the actual, what they do to try to help that. But I would say that they just have to limit their fly time, at least in specific areas. I'm hoping this time lapse will catch this. I can't remember what. I'm sorry, man. I really wanted to show it to you in a video form because it. There, I can show you this part anyway. Good goodness. Okay, I'll tell you what. There it was. See how it turned? Okay, you start there. Now watch this. Watch it tilt down. What causes that?
Huh.
You know what I mean? It wasn't just like tilting in one direction either. The whole thing tilted.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we see. Now once it tilted, look at the top right. Watch the energy come. Boom, we get hit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I don't know what causes that. There's a lot of theory on what causes that. Now, I do want to preface this too, that this energy that we see in the back, these tools are not meant to really give us what's going on in the back. Okay, they're out here in the front. That's their main thing.
Yeah.
I want to say that because it's important to know, because when we see crazy anomalies off the backside here, most of the time it's not really much and nothing to worry about. And this energy that we do see here is what I call the rebound effect, because we'll get hit with solar wind up here, and what it does is it circles back around. It gets sucked back in on both. You can watch it happen. Okay. Yeah. And then this energy builds up. Now, I will also say that I do think that sometimes we do get some energy from behind us, from something. Cosmic rays, probably most likely, because those can come from any direction. Yeah. When we look at these things, we look at them in two dimensionals, and this is we live in a three-dimensional world. So we got not just left, right, top, and bottom. We got, you know, depth, width. I mean, we got to look at this as we're on a ball, because that's what we are. So it can come from underneath, from over top, from the back, from whatever angle you want to think of. We can get these cosmic rays from anywhere, is what I'm saying. And whatever our sun doesn't defend off, it makes it into our atmosphere. And when these things get into our atmosphere, they scatter way different than regular charged particles. They're able to penetrate so much more, and it's so much more radiation. And that's why they issue the warnings for these guys. And it's very dangerous for people, and those things are on the increase because solar minimum. Okay, and that's why I talk about it. I do think that it's very valid to talk about. And I thought, like I said, I think that turning was kind of strange. I'm going to run this back just another little bit. We'll see if it catches it this time. I think it does on the 24th here.
Am I right in saying there's been a lot more radiation penetrating a lot closer to the ground than normal? Is that right?
That is 100% correct. We're here over at the ISWA site, Chris, and if you guys go over here, and if you look at the top up here, see the subtabs?
Yeah.
I'm on the magnetosphere subtab, okay? If I click on 4, do you see these right here? These are basically our Van Allen belts. These are the radiation belts.
Right.
You can click on these and watch a movie, and you can see in not really real time, but it gives you a time lapse, and you can see the radiation coming in and out. If anybody was interested in seeing that, I do a model update now at the end of my videos. I just run a bunch of models together and I put some music to it. And for people that know what they're looking at, or even people that don't, they can dive into it and kind of see it. You know what I mean? It's usually about a 10-minute end of my video type of thing. but it's very informative to those of us that are just trying to catch an update and don't really have time to sit and watch a whole video.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am going to pause this because I do think it's right here somewhere. Yeah, it is. Okay, there it is. Okay, that's where it started. Sorry. What the heck? Okay. I'm going to click this through a single tab, okay? But you guys want to look up here, okay? This is crazy. And the reason why I say this is crazy, because if you look out here in the front, we're not getting nothing from the front yet, okay? This happened inside of our shields. This came from the earth out, is what I'm saying. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, you see it building. You see the shield out starting to control,
Yeah.
right? You see that? Now, we could be getting some energy from out front. Okay, that's definitely possible. But I do think that whatever that was happening here is definitely was us reacting to it. Okay, and see how we're starting to bend at the top there a little bit? Now, if this was typical solar wind, we should see, it should be symmetrical top to bottom. Because if it's not, that means it's coming from a specific direction. Okay, because the sun's directly to our right on this graph. So any wind coming from that, now the winds can be at an angle and stuff, but typically they're kind of like buckshot. They spread out and they just kind of go in a big wide area. All right, they're not pinpoint stuff. So when we see these that are more pinpointed, it's almost like you can't blame it on the sun. Is what I'm trying to say. So I guess we'll click forward here. Now again, you're going to see how it's starting to appendage out here in the front.
Yeah.
So these these are 4-minute intervals. Okay, so within 4 minutes, that's how far it moved. Okay, we'll go out even further here, and we're going. See what it's doing?
Yeah.
Watch this.
Oh wow.
Look at that. Now, see, isn't that a little bit more impressive than it's the still screenshot? I mean, that's why I wanted to show it to you here because
Definitely, yeah.
I mean, it really drives the point home a little bit better because you can see it happening. And what's even a little bit more crazy is.
Have you ever seen anything like that before?
No, not at all. And I've talked to many people about this, and Scott was one of them. And like I said, he's looked at this stuff for 20 years. He's never seen that, ever. And obviously, this satellite hadn't been up there for 20 years, but he's been looking at this thing since it came up, and never. Look at that. I mean, you see that?
Yeah.
Why is there energy like this and then like a dead area in the middle? That lends to a specific location, in my opinion. And you see it, then look at that. See, it bounces right back. Now, that's if you look at the timestamp, that's 3:03 at 10 minutes. Okay. And then the next one is 4 minutes later, and that's how far we rebounded back. Okay. It does it very quickly. Now, what you're seeing here is now we're getting hit in the front. That our magnetic shield is actually getting compressed there because we're getting solar winds. See it? And then we react again. Okay, now what was really impressive about this one, it did it again. Did it twice. The second time it didn't blow out as far. Now I have something to talk about that on that too. Trying to rotate this through. Okay, and you see it happening again?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's starting to do it again, and it does go out a little bit in the same direction. Okay, it didn't do it as impressive, but it did do it. See it?
Yeah, there it is.
Same exact thing. Okay, it just wasn't able to, and then we see that. Now, when we see those big jumps in color like that, I always look at the timestamp because sometimes it does jump time. That's at 7:42, 7:38. So yeah, that was only 4 minutes. So that's a legit capture. That's how much it changed. We reacted that way, is what I'm saying. So when we see that, we got to really question what the heck is going on.
Definitely.
I'll take this back here to this one because I do think this is the stuff I like to show people because it does show them that something actually is happening. These are their tools. We didn't do this. You know what I mean? This isn't something that somebody could Photoshop or something like that.
And I'm sure they never expected the amount of people looking at this stuff to actually search for, threats in space and anomalies and objects that, that as many people are doing that now.
Right. And, what I've learned to do is I don't just stay with the same amount of the same tools. I've gotten a lot of links and stuff, and actually Scott gave me a link to an Australian magnetopause model. It is not what you see here. Okay. It's actually from the sun's on the other side on that model. And it's just basically one little line, but it shows you how far it compresses in and out. And it's really neat to see, because what I've done is I started comparing timestamps, and they do differentiate sometimes. Their models are different.
Very interesting.
So, yeah. So, I mean, we got other data that we can look at other than just our own agencies, is what I'm trying to say. And I think we need to explore that further, because, for a big, huge conspiracy to be worldwide like that, and for so many people to have to be on board with it, I have a hard time thinking that stuff ain't going to get through. Yeah. I don't think that there's so many nefarious people. I know there's a bunch out there, okay? It just would be so hard to kind of contain that. But yeah, man, I mean, I think that that's probably the most impressive thing I've got right now, dude, because that is definitely something that I have never seen that, and multiple people have never seen that either.
Yeah, that is definitely interesting.
I would love an explanation on what's going on there. Now, like I said, I do have a small theory on this. I do think that we build energy, if anybody knows anything about electricity, like a capacitor, okay? What a capacitor is basically just a battery almost, but it gets energy and it collects energy. Now, we as humans, we use them in machinery, and we're able to use that energy and discharge it when we need it. Okay. I worked in the printing industry for 20 years on $1 million equipment, food containers. We used to print food containers, and capacitors was part of every machine. And when these capacitors blew up, you didn't want to be nowhere around. There were fires and everything else. But anyway, what I'm saying is they collect energy, but they can only collect so much, and then they have to discharge. That's my point. Okay. And if you guys know anything about magnetics and stuff and electricity, like I said, we can only hold so much energy. Then it has to be discharged. It has to go somewhere. And that leads me to the earthquake thing. I think sometimes that's why we get the uptick in earthquakes. That's why when we get solar storms, most of the time I'll come on my channel and say, hey, because I'm not the most knowledgeable about earthquakes, straight up. I'm trying to learn as much as I can. There's a lot of people out there that predict them. Obviously the first person everybody goes to is Dutch Sense. That is definitely the guy that I look at. It's just so amazing to watch him say something and for it just to come true within, and he gets shunned. It's unfortunate. Yeah. Very unfortunate that happens to that guy, because he really works hard at it. But I do think that this is part of the equation. And I've said this in my recent videos, that this isn't what's causing the earthquakes. It's just one of the factors that causes them. Now, if you think about it in that way, when you start building factors into a pile, eventually there's going to be one factor that causes it to break. And I think that that's sometimes what we see. We get so much energy and so many factors are already built up as far as what causes earthquakes. And then we get these geomagnetic storms, and there's a what they call a phi angle. That's an angle, and I'm not going to get into that. It's a huge conversation. But when that happens, that's that last factor, and it just breaks off an earthquake. Okay, or a volcanic eruption or anything. I mean, stuff can happen. We were talking about, they came out and were talking about cosmic shock waves, and what that is. There's papers written on that, and we see that here. Okay, because they were wondering why we were seeing these strange anomalies sometimes on our magnetopause models. And sometimes what it is it's solar wind that has gotten shot our way, and then a faster wind stream behind it catches up to it, and it causes a shock wave. And it goes out and it just increases stuff. There's been some papers written on it. It's really interesting if you go check it out. But but that's, like I said, guys, these are their tools. So when we see stuff on here like this, this isn't no lens flare, is what I'm trying to say. Right. This is data points.
Yeah. And
that's
something else people forget, in the mainstream media mentioned it a few times. They put it in a few little articles here and there that we're in the process of a magnetic reversal. And, once that hits a certain point, it's going to completely reverse. And, there goes power for the entire planet.
exactly. And you're 100% right. And then like you said, you throw in like the sun itself. When it's in a minimum, and I said this a few times on my channel, the sun actually protects us from the sun, believe it or not. And what I mean by that is, if we get a constant flow, steady flow of energy from the sun, it gets absorbed into our atmosphere and our shields, our electromagnetic circuit that we talk about, and it actually strengthens it. So what I'm saying there is that when it goes into a minimum, everything in our solar system gets weaker. Okay. So, but during a minimum, the sun still has CMEs and solar flares. So if we're at a weakened state and the sun has an earth directing flare or CME, that's where the danger comes from. That's what I'm talking about, how the sun protects us from the sun when I say stuff like that.
No, it makes sense.
And, it's hard to get a lot of people to understand that. And I like to try to, tell people that a lot, because it does give a little bit of understanding on what we're talking about here. And like you said, the pole reversal, man, that's going to be a big time deal, man. I mean, that's we're talking global change that we don't come back from. We don't recuperate right away. We don't have electricity for multiple years. Is basically what that means.
No one's going to prepare for it, because, like I said, the media just glosses over it, have a couple of articles, and then that's it. Everybody was going to forget about it.
Yeah, it about makes you sick when they do that. I mean, because, and let's just face it, most people, that's what they watch. They watch mainstream media. What were we doing before we got into this? Watching mainstream media.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? But I do think that we are reaching more and more people, and what we're doing is starting to branch out into stuff. And at the very least, we're causing those guys some headaches. And they're having to, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's not my goal. My goal is just to try to show people what to look at and what we're looking at, and then make your own decision. Make up your own mind. I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just here to show you what, and I'll give my opinion. Don't get me wrong. And that's just what I do. So, but I like to show this kind of stuff, and that's what I concentrate on my channel, like you said at the beginning here. And then that's why. Because I don't want to accidentally show something that ends up being a lens flare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's certain things like on those like the all sky cam network, man. Those are fisheye lenses on top of those things.
Oh yeah, those sky cams, you can't trust anything on those.
You just can't, man. You just really, and I hate even saying that, because there's a lot of people that do look at those, and they do serve a purpose. Okay, don't get me wrong.
I'm sorry, I have to say this right now. Those, what is it, Alaska cams? Those are giant lens flares floating across the screen. They're not planets. I'm sorry.
Yep, I agree. I do agree on that. That's something that I do agree with.
Or dust particles. It's dust or something like that in the camera.
Yep. Now, and again, I would also say that, oh gosh, every great once in a while you might see something. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm sure there are genuine anomalies on there, but most of the time, they have a big red ball floating across there. If that was really there, you'd be able to see it. People would be freaking out,
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, if that was there, first off, and again, I know I'm gonna get smacked around somewhere about this.
So will I.
And you know what I'm saying, dude? It's just, if something was that close, don't you think that we might be seeing some tidal stuff going on?
Or, definitely.
I mean, we do see some stuff, but it ain't nothing that would be happening if an object that big was that close. That's just how I think. And again, maybe I don't completely understand everything. I don't know. And I don't understand everything, but I'm with you on that. I mean, those big balls, I mean, you can take them, and like I said, if people would just take that particular, like that ball that they say rotates, we hear that a lot too, right?
Yeah, it's rotating.
all that is the change in direction from the light from the sun, bouncing off the same spot in the camera. That's all that is.
And I have to admit, whenever I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, look at the planets. But yeah, no, you learn.
Yeah, me too. And that's kind of where I've come kind of, you know, I've been probably looking at this for a little over 2 years now. My channel's been up and running, you know, for about a year, I guess. And again, I've learned so much just within the first 3 months. I mean, I even went back and deleted some of my videos because some of them were just completely junk. You know, after I looked at them, you know, I didn't want to confuse people. That's the only reason why, you know, I'm not afraid to say I was wrong. I just didn't want to confuse people. That's why I deleted those videos, because I don't want people clicking on an old video of mine and thinking that that's actually what's there, because that's not.
Yeah.
You know, there's still a few videos out there that I need to go back and sift through, because I'm going through those to make sure that I don't have information there that I don't believe anymore. You know what I mean? But I do think 100%. It's important to let people see how we grow, how we learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because what that does is it lets them know that we're able to say, hey, you know, we were there. This is where you're at. We're trying to get you here. You know what I mean? And that's the goal, at least of what I do. So,
definitely.
And I see that a lot in your channel too, Chris. And I mean, I watch all of your interviews and stuff, and very interesting stuff. And like you said, there's so many theories out there, and I'm not saying all mine are right. I'm just saying that's what I'm looking at right now. I show you observations. That's pretty much what I'm doing. And
I just like to bring all the theories together and let you decide for yourself. Let the audience decide. And at the same time, you might learn something.
Right. And you know, there are things that I do feel strongly about, and I do say that. You know, I'll give you my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like what I'm showing you here, I don't think that was solar wind. I do strongly believe in the 28-day Planet X cycle. That is something I've almost come to say, hey, that's almost fact, because there's so much observational evidence that I have for it now. I did it myself. You know, I went and looked at it myself. But what I'm saying is that those are strong things that I put out there.
Yeah, okay? It is very compelling.
And I just want people to understand that, you know, just dig into it. Just come look at it. Come look at it. That's all I'm asking.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
And everybody go check out Blue Koolaid channel. He does amazing work. Just watch a couple of his videos and you'll see, you know, that's it. He does an amazing job of showing you how to do this yourself and be able to find these anomalies yourself, so you don't think that it's all just BS. You can see it for yourself. He does a great job. Check out Blue Koolaid. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Once again, amazing information, and we'll have to have you back on again.
All right. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Night, guys.